Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to France. Welcome to Paul Ricard, and welcome to round 3 of the EG Evolved RaceFace.Pro GT3 Championship, or I like to call it the EG GT3 Championship. And welcome to Paul Ricard. This is going to be a great time, and where we're going to see championships starting to even out as everyone's looking for those crucial points to find it out. Now, let's quickly take a look at the circuit as we've got a quick walk around of it. Turn 1 coming out of the pits is going to be a bit hairy, but for those going down the main straight are going to have to take caution, as S. de la Vera is not to be trifled with. Yes, you got lots of room on the outside if you go to the right, but you will land up having a very hard-braking left-hand corner followed by a very quick right hand to drag yourself through. Absolutely on the gas all the way down to El Hotel, and make sure that you get late on the brakes for the right-hand bend. Carve your way through a left hand, just feather the throttle, a slight dab on the brakes into a right. Then it's feather your throttle all the way down and make sure you are flat on the gas as you go through the kink, heading down the Mistral Straight. It is all about slipstreaming, and it's about that top end. We will see drivers utilizing it. Main part for overtaking, especially midway down the straight, they will start to go for their different lines, inside, outside, as they will get themselves ready for Cum de la Signs, a right-hander that isn't too difficult at slow speed, but you're going to be heading out there at 300 kilometers an hour. It's a slight dab on the brakes, down the gears, in through the long right, feather the throttle through all the way into Basset, a long right-hand bend that's double apexes, makes life a little bit interesting. Aim down the short straight as you head into Bendor, left hand, as you just feather the throttle all the way through until Virage du Point, where it's hard on the brakes, in through the right-hander, and the pit lane is right there to get inside. So you got to be rather cautious on your approach. That being said, qualifying is underway for our drivers, and a massive welcome to all in the virtual grands. We got Derek Bakum, we got Antonio Gamble, we got Liam Swinburne joining us as well. Good to have you guys out here, and welcome to the show. Now, that being said, if you're first time out here and you're first time seeing it, where have you been all season? Because we're in for a rather exciting treat as the championship is starting to build during the course of the race. That being said, Henry Mayer, definitely want to keep an eye out for. Currently in first place, 0.5 of a second ahead of Fleming Bauer in second place. His fellow teammate looking to try and close the gap and be part of the fight. Henry Platt, a little bit further down, will be standing on the gas and trying to pick up the pace. Jason Abschmeyer, we spoke about him returning this season, and so far has been a force to be reckoned with, and showing they still got that little bit of pace underneath him. Garrett Bukes down there in 5th place, but don't count him out. We saw how he was taking the fight in round 2. Gerry Fonseca a little bit further down in 6th. Neil Swartz is in 7th. And then we move on to our Pro-Ams, as Tennis Buerta puts in 8th place, but our Pro-Ams start to put in the times, and we have got Ron van der Reest, who's currently sitting in 1st of the Pro-Ams, and 9th overall. He's got Gerard Pretorius trying to close up the gap, along with Johan Verveers. He's a little bit further down in 11th, but we did have Jean Verveers racing in LMU yesterday, and having a ton of fun out there. Chris Beermister trying to also put the hammer down in the new Pandacity colours, and Luca Naines a little bit further in 13th. Miles Stone tries to fight his way through, and Miles is also fighting for a championship this weekend as well in a different community, so he's having to juggle practice on different circuits to make it work out for him at the moment. But at the top of the order, it is Fleming Bauer putting in the fast lap time, a 1:53.005 in the last 8 minutes, and he's really trying to step up that gap. He's really trying to make the move and ensure that he's at the top end of the order. That's always a difficult call of how far are you willing to push yourself and the car, and considering this is a race where you want to be in the front. You want to be first out of those corners, and you want to be with enough of a gap that your competitors don't have that slipstream. Otherwise, you don't want to be in first place and lose out the run. So keep that well in mind as the drivers try and figure out what can they do to improve. Henry Mayer at the moment down in Sector 2, but is leading out the pack by 0.7 over Jason Absmeyer. Fleming Bauer down in third, but you could see how the slipstream is being utilized with Chris Beermister just allowing that slipstream to happen. It slingshots Henry Mayer around into the right hand, and you've got to be so careful. If you're on that inside line, you will force your competitor offline, off the apex, and to go and land up with a penalty as well, because we get track warnings here. Despite it being a very wide open circuit, it is also a circuit that can hurt you in terms of penalties. We've seen it before here at Paul Ricard, and everyone is a little bit too cautious with it. So, Henry Mayer leads out the championship with Christoph Peterson in second, and Daniel de Villiers holds third place currently for the pros. But Beggar Krobler is chasing down on 53 points to Daniel de Villiers' 67, and 1 point off him, Jason Farmer lies a little bit further down the order. He's trying to really put the hammer down and ensure he stays in for the fight. Ruan Heineke is in 6th, 7th is Mordred Claassen, Gerrit Bukes, Jean-Ray Dutoy, and rounding out our top 10 in the championship is Jason Absmeyer. Moving on to our Pro-Ams, life is a little bit interesting for Rian van der Reis, who currently leads out the Pro-Ams in qualifying. He does lead out the championship with the second place in round 1 and first place in round 2. He's on 93 points. He's getting chased down by Sean Loureiro. Conrad Martin is fighting for that third place. Reginald Mutileni, first time he's going to be charging after the Pro-Am Championship. And at the moment, he lies in 4th place, but 1 point off the back of him is Keegan Bowen, followed by Anton Lummers, Chris Biermister, Jared Bakum, Gerald Pretorius, and Ulrich de Jager rounds out the pack for our Pro-Am field. Now, that being said, Van der Reis is leading out in qualifying for the Pro-Ams, and a little bit further down, Gerald Pretorius is getting chased down by Johan Verveers as the two start to make their way through. So we're starting to see a difference in the championship starting to happen, but also in driving, as Christoph Peterson will be putting his first lap time on the board and does rocket himself up into third place with that Honda NSX, a little bit different to the 488 he's been driving. Henk Petersen down the order is also trying to get a good time on the board. Last lap time wasn't the greatest, but he's now trying to make it work in his favor. Hansi Myberg as well for the Team Tryhard Racing is looking to get a good time out on the board. Hansi Myberg been frantic behind the scenes to develop the car, make sure that it's all up to scratch, and look to fight out for the championship as well. Jason Farmer comes across. He's in 8th place. And Nicholas Manuel currently 0.1 up on his personal best. So Henry Mayer still leads with that 53-0. But Nicholas Manuel, who was down in all 3 sectors on the last run, he's up 0.1 on his personal best. Much like Ruan Heineke, up 0.2 on his personal best. And Anton Lubbers, up 0.4. Herman Whipner is sitting 0.6. And Henk Petersen, 0.9 off their personal best. Unfortunately, we did see Henk Petersen bailing out of the lap, and that would have been an absolute flyer for him, but just not quite turning out the way he wanted. So, Nicholas Manuel sits in 12th place, 0.1 up on his lap. Kerry van Zyl also 0.1 up on his lap. And Ernest Limburgs returns to the circuit. He's 0.1 up. Now, this is an interesting one. Ernest Limburgs actually missed out a round, and that's why he slipped out of the championship, but is looking to take the fight back to the sharp end of the field. That being said, he's also fighting for an international championship this weekend as well, and having to balance his time between Paul Ricard and Nürburgring, 2 very different circuits and in 2 very different cars. He was driving a 488 in ERA, and now he's in the Honda NSX here at RaceFace.Pro. Ernest Limburgs now 0.1 up on his personal best in 9th position, trying to catch up to his teammate Christoph Petersen, who holds 3rd. Jason Absmeyer trying to pick up the pace. He was 0.1 up on his personal best. He does carry a lot of momentum through, but unfortunately not closing up that gap. Tends to have an ebb and flow at the moment. Henry Mayer, Fleming Bauer, Christoph Peterson still hold the top three, while Rian van der Race, down in 14th position, has got Bego Krobler going and keeping a good gap. The Team Wolf driver is now separating the likes of second and third of the Pro-Ams off the start. That, however, may change and may be a big effect as Henry Mayer goes even quicker than his personal best. He did a 153 dead. No questions asked. Dead. It wasn't 003. It is 153 dead. Will we see a 152 possibly come out in the last 2 minutes? It's going to be a hard push for the drivers to get it done, but it is a possibility that can be done on this circuit. It is rather warm, 33 degrees track temperature with 29 degrees air temperature that you got to go and work out with. Now, this doesn't really help out the turbocharged cars like the Ferrari, like the Audis, and like the BMWs, but the McLarens are going to be quite happy with it. Naturally aspirated, they will give it their absolute all. As Jason Absmar is finding out that is trying to get a little bit more pace underneath him, and will come across the line. 0.3 up on his time. He gets into third. Christoph Peterson down the order, but it's Fleming Bauer with a proper charge right now. 0.5 up over everyone. Fleming Bauer, if he can hold this pace, now that Henry Mayer gave him a little bit of a slipstream, a 152 is a possibility. Right, stepped out, wasn't too neat on the exit there, trying to pick up the pace and invalidated the lap. That would have been a 152. Unfortunately, the rear end just did not want to cope with the car and really lost out that run. Bego Krobler currently 0.4 up on his personal best. He's away from the Pro-Am fight, leaving Rian van der Race, Jean Verveers, and the likes of Gerald Pretorius to deal with one another. So Johan Verveers, apologies, will be fighting out side by side with the first of the Pro-Am. So Bego Krobler currently 0.4 up, 1 minute to go left of our qualifying. If they haven't crossed the line now, they will be seeing the checkered flag and will have to accept where they're starting in this race. Henry Platt for the OG team. Omnis Gaming now trying to pick up the pace as they're fighting it out. It's the same as the Pandacity team. Both are at Comic-Con in Valorant, if I'm correct in saying, and a CSGO as well. They're going to be fighting it out for the tournaments, but they're looking to go and ensure to carry the momentum now so they can carry victories all the way through. At the moment, it is Pandacity locking out that front row ahead of Jason Absmeier and Christoph Peterson. Bego Krobler holds 5th place and will have one more lap left in time to go. Ernest Lindberg's a little bit further down the order. He's in 14th position. The Fear the Bones driver down and a little bit further down where he wanted to be, but Jason Farmer trying to close up that gap, 0.1 of a second. So we're still seeing a little bit of ebb and flow. Drivers still trying to get up a little bit more pace. Jason Farmer, 0.1 up on his personal best. He's trying to hammer a good lap in, as much as Gerrit Bukes at the moment, as he chases down Chris Beermister a little bit ahead. Now, the Stingers Racing also been in a proper go. Chris Beermister launching himself off, and so does one of the McLarens at the back, unfortunately going and losing out a little bit of time there. So Gerrit Bukes will be more than happy with his time. 0.1 up. He's got to carry the momentum through this long left-hander and onto the brakes. 0.1 still. He's going to have to keep it going. Is it going to be enough to get a 153.960 to get ahead of Daniel de Villiers? Or is he going to be right on the mark with Daniel de Villiers? We're going to find out very shortly. De Villiers holds 6th, and he is fighting for that championship. So any drop of position is going to hurt him in the long run. Gerrit Bukes comes across the line, puts himself into 6th place, will be starting on the inside line, heading into turn 1. John Ray Toy next to come across the line. No improvement there. Neil Swartz as well, trying to get the hammer down. And I've got to say, the green livery out on these Stinger racing cars are just really good. I've got to say. They're very, very interesting. I'm still favoring blue and white, but that's typical BMW colors. But that being said, there's a bunch of good liveries out there, as my predecessor, George G. Max, would say. A good livery will make you go faster. Chris Biermeister, currently 0.1 up on his personal best, is going to be enough for him as he comes across the line and will be putting himself up the order as well. So, with that being said, folks, we are getting ready to kick off the race, and you can catch also a monster surprise because EG has got you covered until 30th of September. 10% off the EGR sim rigs. Very, very solid aluminium extrusion rigs that you can fully customize to your personal liking, and it can go and combo out with single or triple screens or have a separate monitor stand. Fully compatible with all major seats, including the new next generation air seat that will be landing in South Africa. It's got fans inside it to help you cool down in the summer and get you ready for those extremely hot summer days. Or if you're out in the UK, typically anytime the sun comes out, you're going to need that because you guys land up cooking from oblivion. That being said, we're going to be kicking off with the racing all too very soon. A massive shout out to our sponsor, title sponsor, EG Evolved. Once again, that special is on. And catch EG along with Simulator Cave. They are out at Comic-Con this weekend. EG's got a big stand, got himself all geared up and ready to go. Go and visit out the stands and show a bit of support. Also, let them know here from RaceFace, we sent you guys that you saw it out on the broadcast. It always helps to go and give a little bit of feedback of, hey, we saw you. So that being said, we're going down to the track and getting ready to kick off the races. Henry Mayer will be starting out the grid, and locking out that first row is Pandassi. Henry Mayer, Fleming Bauer, they're going to have to work together. We've seen the two come to blows with one another. It's not the first time that we have seen teammates come to blows with one another, as they tend to push themselves a little too hard every step of the way. There's a lot of communication that goes on. There's a flood of emotions at the start line, and it can land up a little bit tense as they make their way through. Run for the race, down in 16th position with Johan Verveers, lining up side by side. So Johan Verveers looking to take on that first place spot. And that being said, Johan Verveers is not in the championship fight at the moment, but can be. Unfortunately, missed out one round, got 16th in another. Paul Ricard may be a difference maker for the Pro-Am Championship as our drivers start to make their way around the circuit. So, that being said, let's head through the grid for the EG Evolved RaceFace.Pro GT3 Championship here at RaceFace. So, going through the grid, it is going to be the likes of Henry Mayer starting out in first place. Fleming Bauer sits in second. Jason Absmeyer holds third place. Christoph Peterson will be in fourth. Bego Krobler, followed by Gerrit Bukes, will hold out fifth and sixth. Daniel de Villiers, Ruben Heineke will fight it out with one another. Harry Van Zyl and Nicholas Manuel rounds out our top 10. Moving down from there, Henry Platt, Jean-Ray de Toy, Tiernas Buerta, Ernest Limburgs in 14th, followed by Jason Farmer, Ryan van der Race, Johan Verveers, Gerald Pretorius, Chris Collison, and Jeffrey LaRue round out our top 20. LaRue actually coming in from racing LMU last night as well, and looking to fight it out. Jared Bakum sits in 21st, followed by Ruben van der Walt, Darren Miller, Milestone, Neil Swartz, Jonathan Chrysler, Benjamin Till down in 27th position. Gotta love our chap all the way out from Ireland. Puts in a huge amount of effort there. Chris Biermeister down in 28th. Keegan Bowen, followed by Herman Whitner. And rounding out our pack will be Reginald Montaleni, Anton Lummers, Sean Lorero, Lucan Haynes, Ulrich Diaga, Vessel Woda, Hansi Myberg, and Henk Petersen round out the running pack. So, with a monster field of 38 cars here in the Pro-Am division, and majority are sitting in the pros, with those sitting in Pro-Am narrowly missing out the top in their qualifying. Well, expect to see them fight it out here around Paul Ricard. 2 mandatory pit stops that need to be served. You get in the box, you put 1 liter in the car, and you get back on the hammer all the way through the race. That being said, easier to go and talk about than actually racing, because whatever plan you had at the start of the race, throw it away. Plan 2, throw it away. Plan 3, throw it away. We will see drivers having to think outside the box on a circuit that isn't too aggressive on the tires, but is starting to cool down since qualifying. It's down to 30 degrees out there, and that is going to affect their planning for the pit stops. But who's going to be able to push a little bit more? I do suspect Fleming Bauer and Henry Mayer are going to utilize the toe on one another to try and break away from Jason Absmeyer and Christoph Peterson, who looks to try and close up that gap. The logistical nightmare racing, Fear the Bones driver, will be going and fighting it side by side with Jason Absmeyer. Bego Krobler at a good position to try and get the charge. The Team Wolf hoping to find his prey a little bit further up, but Gerrit Bukes for the Stingers Racing is going to lay in the hate and make sure that he's in for the fight. Ruben Heineke and Daniel de Villiers out there in the only Nissan GTR in the field, but the PWSR Nissan GTR has got a lot of grunt underneath that twin-turbo engine and will be a contender down the main straight to fight it out. So as both Pandacity cars round the final corner, they will get told 70 kilometers an hour and will get themselves ready to go. Lights on, lights on, lights on. Lights still on, waiting for it to go. Anytime, Jim, you can push the button for round 3 of the EG Evolved as we get going, as Henry Mayer gets a dominating launch off a line. Fleming Bauer trying to close up that gap as much as possible. Christoph Peterson gets right into the fray with Jason Absmeyer looked on the inside. All clean on the way through for our drivers. Our top end looking just fine as Daniel de Villiers gets past Ruben Heineke. Henry Platt stays in the mix. We do, however, get a little bit of argy-bargy between Chris Collison, Darren Miller, and Jared Berkum, having a little bit of a contact with one another. Not too bad, though. But there is, unfortunately, Nicholas Manuel that went off into oblivion. And Anton Lummers, apologies, Anton Lummers in the 149 car gets turned round and falls down. Chris Biermeister, Darren Miller, as many of the drivers land up, just having a bit of a problem. What on earth happened in the front end? Let's quickly go and take a look at the replay. Try go to our helicam. Oh, there's the first contact from the McLaren. And Reginald Mutaleni now trying to go around the outside. There's already carnage up ahead. And that's, unfortunately, Miles Stone also getting caught out in his Aston Martin. Turn around in the mix as it was 3 wide into a corner. And unfortunately, didn't work out for a couple of drivers, including one of the Stingers Ferraris down the order. Chris Biermeister trying to get on the ride with Vessel Woda. He's also trying to close up that gap as much as possible as they carry on through. Jeffrey LaRue misses out. A close contact as that is Herman Whipner turned round in the Pandacity. Unfortunately, not having a good time as they fall down the order. Daniel de Villiers up into 4th place with Jason Absmeyer and Bego Krobler chasing him down. Henry Platt trying to close up the gap as well, along with Gerrit Bukes and Jason Farmer trying to pick up the pieces as well. So let's quickly try and find some of these incidents. This is on board the likes of Jeffrey LaRue under braking into the corner. We do see the contact against the Stingers, and unfortunately Luke is getting involved in that little bit of side-on contact as he was sliding out. But a variety of drivers, unfortunately Whipner there, we saw the contact, and a variety of drivers now into the pits. Interesting enough, just talking about the likes of LaRue's car, if I saw that correctly, the sponsor is actually Nokia's business. Interesting enough, just fun fact out there on the side. So, Bego Krobler keeping up the fight with Jason Abschmeyer as they continue down the way. Couple of cars in through pit lane, unfortunately needing some major repair work, and we are seeing a couple of retirements, 2 retirements at the moment. We're down to 36 cars from the 38 starters. Variety of drivers just not too happy with that contact. Vego Krobler looks up on the inside, trying to get the pass done, and does get it on Jason Abschmeyer, who goes out very wide. Henry Platt brings it in only just, but take a look at the undercut. Jason Abschmeyer up and under on the inside will carry the momentum through. Vego thrown offline, and that's going to bring Henry Platt into the picture as well, as Platt will continue to keep the power on. He will be looking for any opportunity to close up that gap to Vego Krobler and the likes of Jason Abschmeyer after the undercuts on the two, trying to get one up on one another. So tough fighting out there towards the front, but Vego Krobler sits in a bit of a sandwich at the moment. He does have protection from the likes of Henry Platt in terms of a slipstream, but he still needs to go on the attack to get past Jason Abschmeyer. This is still early stages in the race, however, and drivers will have to keep that well in mind. Chris Collison pulls into the pits as we see Benjamin Till, part of the Team Wolf, trying to close up on Jonathan Chrysler up ahead. Ryan van der Walt and likes of Johan Verveers continues on the drive. Luke Haynes onto the back of Chris Beermister, both not having the best of starts, now trying to fight their way through. But we do also get word that Jason Farmer, down in 32nd position, is the leader of those that have done their first round of pit stops. We did, however, see in the last round how much time he was able to make up during the course of the race by pitting a little bit earlier, by closing up, and became a very viable threat for a number of drivers. Jan van der Race leads out the Pro-Ams with the likes of Johan Verveers chasing him down in second, and Jonathan Chrysler runs third in Pro-Am with Benjamin Till keeping him for company. Vego Krobler trying to look on the inside of Jason Abschmeyer. Unfortunately, not close enough to make it work, but take a look at the speed difference. The naturally aspirated V8 of Henry Platt able to utilize the straight line and close up at a rate of knots, but just doesn't have the cornering to contend with the Ferrari 296. That V6 turbocharge continues to run. Jason Abschmeyer in the McLaren 720S Evo got a lot of straight line, does have the characteristics to handle through the corners, but it's about getting it right is the long story. Gerrit Bukes keeps ahead of Tennis Buerta as they overtake one another, but Ernest Limburg's trying to close up that gap as well. Running in 11th, he wants to get into the top 10, but Tennis Buerta is going to make life rather difficult for him. And coming into driver's briefing, Tennis Buerta was just going and scraping the chair on the ground, trying to get himself all comfortable and also to get in the driver's heads. Well, he's so far now trying to keep in the head of Gerrit Bukes just ahead. So, Gerrit Bukes continues on the momentum, trying to figure out what's going to be the big plan for him in the long run. And a little bit further down, Johan Verveers dealing with Ruan van der Walt trying to close up. Now, Ruan van der Walt is not for he's not for class position, but is for overall position. So it depends if Johan Verveers would like to let him pass, utilize the toe, and close up to Ruan van der Race, or does he feel that he's got the pace to keep it going? It's always a tough time out there. Vesselwoda around the outside of Keegan Brown as Darren Miller falling down the order. Oh, Thriller Miller down and out. What on earth happened to him? So this is taking a look at old Thriller Miller himself in the Red Bull colored PWSR Lamborghini under braking. And did the rear just snap out? Yes, it did. He narrowly missed the field, but that would have been close. Well done to Darren Miller for holding on the anchors as well. So that was very, very well done on his part. Despite everything going wrong with him, he was able to stand on the anchors and make it work. Ernest Limburgs gets past Tennis Buerta and now up into the top 10. And Tennis Buerta will be tailing in 11th position, not wanting Jean-Ray Dutoy to come and catch up to him. He wants to try and maintain that little bit of a gap. Run for the vault onto the back of Johan Verveers will continue on the drive. Lucan Haynes keeps a little bit of a wide line, and he's got Chris Beermister chasing him down as our leader starting to put in that fast lap. A 1:53.5 over Fleming Bauer as they try and close up the distance. Oh, Darren Miller, once again, the number 11, not having an easy time out there. This time towards the barriers. Not going to be happy with that rear end. The tires a little bit cooked. That is for certain. And he's going to be having to nurse them back on the way through. When you scrub them a little bit too hard with the spin, you generate a lot of pressure that goes into the tires. It takes a lot of life out of the tires, and you got to let them cool down. The only way you're going to do that is going to have to slow the pace down, try and focus on braking a little bit earlier, going and lifting a lot earlier to ensure you stay in for the fight. But he is getting absolutely swamped by the field as he waits to try and find a bit of a clean go. Bego Krobler and Jason Abschmeyer continue to keep each other busy. Down the main straight they go. Bego trying a little bit more. Johan Bego Krobler onto the back of Jason Abschmeyer as they close up down the main straight. Looks to the inside, over the rough as well, on the brakes. Is it going to work out in his favor? He does get the pass done. Couldn't lock the inside. Jason Abschmeyer's done this before. The up and under, and there it is. The up and under coming into effect and puts the hammer down. Bego Krobler and Jason Abschmeyer continuing to fight it out. And this is very reminiscent of not only going back in RaceFace.Pro's history, but also when there was the MSA 80K ACC that was going on. Both these drivers did exactly the same thing, but in two previous teams. They know each other rather well, they know the circuit, and they will have to keep it in consideration as Henry Platt keeps on to the power. Big welcome also to the Badger coming out from his Twitch stream and joining us here as well. Good to have you. As Henry Platt around the outside of Bego Krobler, that straight line coming into fray. Now, this is going to be an opportunity for Bego to hold on to the back of Henry Platt, utilize that slipstream, and try to utilize him as a bit of a battering ram to Jason Abschmeyer. That being said, Henry isn't going to give the position up too easy. He's going to fight it out, and they are slowly but surely bringing in Gerry van Zyl into the mix. So Gerry van Zyl out there, keeps the pressure on. The 118 driver now will look to try and get the pass on Bego Krobler as they are fighting for class position. This is all out for both drivers to really deal the damage. Johan Verveers leads out the likes of our Pro-Ams with Graham van der Race, our championship leader, now down into second, and he has got Ruan van der Walt now keeping the pressure on him. And van der Walt is definitely going to keep the pressure down the main straight they go, and it's going to be looking to the outside line. Is he going to be able to go a little bit later on the brakes? We'll have to find out as Henry Platt pulls away from Bego Krobler and Gerry van Zyl drops off as well. Jean-Ray de Toy loses out position to Tiernis Buerta, who escapes around the outside. He's going to be more than happy to keep going, while the Stinger's Lamborghini trying to get that up and under, as we've seen previously done. Gets put over the curbs, has to back off, otherwise he's going to lose out a little bit of time there. Reginald Mutileni and Jonathan Crissett fighting it out with one another, and both looking to see where is the door open, where can they get the pass done and dusted without getting too hurt in the process. Hansi Meiberg onto the back of Anton Lammers as the two fight it out. The Treehouse Works Racing looking to stay in the fight, with Ulrich Diaga a little bit in trouble as Nicholas Manuel, you could barely see the Ferrari right up his tail, now looks for the inside line over the BMW, goes around the inside. Is he going to be able to hold it? Yes, he does. Will he protect the up and under? He will, as Ulrich Diaga just not having that pace underneath him to stay in for the fight as well. So, Bego Krobler losing track of Henry Platt has got Gerry van Zyl in the mix, but Gerrit Bukes has now joined the fight. So Bukes is hoping to stay there and stay within a second of the cars, because if you're within a second, you're going to start feeling the pull. Half a second, it's powerful. Any closer to that, guess what? You're in for an absolute treat. But while you're in the tow, you can utilize a little bit of a clever strategy. Instead of going for the pass, you can actually lift off the throttle a little bit, save a bit of fuel, which means you can go an extra lap longer. you don't have to get into the fight, but you can utilize the tow to pull you along. Fun fact, you can do that in traffic behind a truck as well. And as long as you're close enough to the truck, you hear the air disappear around you. You can hear that when you're in the slipstream, and you can lift off the throttle and let your car coast a little bit through the corners and down the straight. And allowing that little bit of a pull saves 0.1, 0.2 of a litre per lap. Doesn't sound like much, but when you're in a race like this with 2 mandatory pit stops, if you can eke out that extra lap, you can eke out that little bit of pace, you may have an opportunity to get it done. There's Bucas late on the brakes. A send on Harry van Zyl gets him done and dusted, but van Zyl now looking to fight back around the outside, heading into turn 1. Bucas gonna defend, switch around, as van Zyl did look for the inside. He decided not going to take it this time round. He's going to rather wait it out. Herman Whipner getting ahead of the likes of Anton Lummers as they continue on the drive between them. So good to see a number of drivers looking to really get the pace and seeing how it's all going to work out. So tough fight indeed for a lot of our competitors while the race continues. But it is going to be a tough race for likes of Johan Verveers as he's keeping the pressure on the likes of Rowan van der Walt. He doesn't want to lose out time here as Rowan van der Race is on the back of him. This will be a spectacular result after a bit of a nightmare start to the season for Johan Verveers, who's usually quite a good contender for the top 10. He's quite consistent. This season, however, hasn't quite worked in his favor. Take a look at this. Bucas try to look around the outside. Bago went defensive. Henry Platt just allowing that tow to happen. And you can see how much Bago Krobler makes up that time. But Harry van Zyl is in the mix there. But Ernest Limburgs will be looking to try and close that gap of 2.3 seconds behind as well. So, Henry Mayer still leads out the pack ahead of Fleming Bauer. 3 seconds difference of them. Christoph Peterson, 1.6 seconds off them, holds third. Daniel de Villiers, Jason Ashmeyer, Henry Platt, Bago Krobler, and Kerr Bukes are all fighting it out. So Bucas trying to figure out where is he going to get that little bit of momentum. This is where he's good. Out on the brakes, tried for the inside, a little bit of argy-bargy up against the back of Bago Krobler's Ferrari, but that has just allowed Harry van Zyl to come flying back in for the fight. And van Zyl, utilizing the tow, tries to go through. Bago tries to go defensive to the inside line. And there is the Honda NSX of Ernest Lindbergs. Bago having to defend every step of the way. He did feel that pressure. And there is Bucas losing the rear of the car. Loses out 2 positions. Rejoins. And has got a bit of damage to the front end of that car. Just by trying to bump draft. And not having enough pace to the likes of Bago Krobler. That little bit of contact does land up taking a lot of front aero out of the car, which you are depending on every little bit of it. These cars will be running very, very, very low aero. So if it disappears, you're in for a bit of a hard work and you rely on that mechanical grip a little bit more. But that little bit of top end does come into play. Keegan Bowen keeping ahead of Hansi Myberg. A good switch round on the 2. As you can see, Sean Loureiro now rearing for the fight as well. Loureiro wants to get closer to likes of Bowen up ahead. Hansi Myberg is that space in between that Bowen needs to hold at the moment and continue on the drive. Benjamin Till for the Team Wolf, trying to go around the outside of Ram for the race. Not going to make it work, but might have the pace for the up and under. Heading into the right-hander. Unfortunately, loses out just that little enough of momentum for the race. Is able to continue holding the gap through. Reginald Mutaleni down in 17th is trying to pick up the paces. Jonathan Chrysler has lost out the car. He is stopped. He's holding the brakes. Hooks it into reverse to mind out of the way of all the drivers. But the Lamborghini not having a good time out there. Let's quickly take a look as he heads into the right-hander. Gets a little bit unsteady on entrance. Carries it through, but the tires just not holding the grip in through the long right-hander. Just eats them up on the way. And he does bring it to a stop. The track is down 1 degree from when they started, but he has just gone 6 degrees up on where he wanted to be. and now under threat from Keegan Bowen. Sean Loureiro all over the back of him. Hansi Myberg actually mines out the way, allows Loureiro to go on the attack of Bowen, and Herman Wepner looking to stay in the fray. Hansi Myberg does try and look for the inside yet again, not able to go for it, but is starting to put the pressure, saying, hey, listen, Griffin Sim Racing Team, tell Sean Loureiro, get the Getty up and get going, otherwise we're going to have a bit of a problem, as the Ravenous Motorsport, Keegan Bowen, is not having an easy time. Take a look, Loureiro went for the inside line. They do see Jonathan Chrysler just ahead of them, and will be going and trying to nurse his tyres. Hansi Myberg feeling the pressure from Herman Wepner now, looking for the inside line. This is a bit of an uncomfortable situation where the cars ahead of you are losing time. That tends to impact you, and it starts to go back and forth. Young Fierce looks on the inside and around the outside of Rowan Footervolt, gets that pass done and dusted as we cut to it, but it was still a very, very interesting move for the drivers to go around the outside. It's something you don't usually see for the drivers to push, because you do lose that apex on the inside line. As we do see Jeffrey LaRue trying to go on the inside of Vessel Woda. LaRue for Dash not having an easy time out there. Will look to try and keep on the power of Vessel Woda. Not having an easy run, however. Sean Loureiro, Hansi Myberg, and Herman Wepner. No, that isn't Dean Norkier's old business. I do apologize. Rufa Dash is completely separate. Herman Wepner and Keegan Bowen fight it out with Anton Lummers on the back of him. Nicholas Manuel gets ahead of Neil Swartz as they try and focus on their charge. 36 cars remain in this race. 38 started, and Henry Mayer has held on to first place since the start of the race, only gapping his teammate little by little. Henry Platt dealing with Bago Krobler at the moment, both fighting out for position, and you can see the tyres starting to take a bit of strain. Despite we've just gone over the 20-minute mark, there is still a little bit of an aspect where the cars are starting to battle. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. 45-minute mark is the halfway point where we should start seeing those pit stops coming in, especially for the first pit stops, but we may see drivers starting to double stack it and run that a little bit later. They will get an early fuel, short fuel, get in the pits, put a new set of tyres on for the final push at the end, as this is when the temperatures start to settle here in France. It is going on towards 6:30 here in France at Paul Ricard, and that means we will see the temperature start to dip a little bit more. Jeffrey LaRue keeping in tow of Vessel Woda as they continue on the drive. Jason Farmer up into 27th, still holds the lead of those that have done their pit stops. LaRue, unfortunately, not having the drive on Vessel Woda, who goes defensive, holds the inside line, and will continue to hold that 20th position. So, drivers continuing to think. Big games here, big gains needed for the championship. Luke Haines dealing with Chris Biermeister, trying to hunt him down. Rian van der Race and Benjamin Till will keep the pressure on one another. Each of the different competitors thinking outside the box. What can they do to gain that little bit more time, and how can they fight it out? So it's both in shot. We got Luke Haines and Chris Biermeister, Vessel Woda, and Jeffrey LaRue a little bit tailing behind, who is trying to make up that gap, as we see both of the fighting duos going and making their way through for 18th, 19th, and 20th and 21st respectively. Chris Biermeister tries to get on the inside of Luke Haines. Unfortunately, couldn't quite get the drive to help him out in turn 1, turn 2, but will sit in the tow for that back straight. And that is where you want to be, especially for the incredibly long straight. Get right up against the back of the car, get on the power as early as you can, and launch yourself for that slingshot towards the end of the circuit. Hansi Myberg fighting the likes of Herman Wipner is also one of our close fights out on circuit, as Hansi trying to look for that inside line and stay within the fight. Now, Hansi Myberg has been on the climb to move his way up through the order. Benjamin Till fighting out with Rian van der Race, and both are fighting for second in the Pro-Am class at current. Van der Race, who leads out the championship, does not want to lose out. to the Team Wolf driver, Benjamin Till, at the moment, as they continue a little bit more pace from the race. He does go out wide. Benjamin Till tries to capitalize. Unfortunately, not close enough to go for the dive just as yet. Ernest Lindberg's dealing with Kerry Fazell, and Gerrit Bucas has finally caught up to the trade and looking to stay in for the fight a little bit further up the road from them, as we do see likes of Fazell early on the brakes. He allows Bucas to get on by. So the Singers Racing going and having a bit of a chat with the Griffins. That would be the Pandacity car. So the two of them having a bit of a chat with one another, saying, listen, let me buy, let me pull, and we'll take on from there and try and get a little bit closer. So always good to see a little bit of team chat, but this is also changing how the championship is evolving. Remember, this is round 3. We got 8 rounds to play with, and with the drivers trying to utilize every single point possible despite there being a drop round. Everyone looking for that little bit of a game. Bego Krobler and Henry Platt still keep the pressure on one another and keep that pace, as Team Wolf and Omnius Gaming will be communicating both to these drivers, saying, okay, this is what we need to do and how we need to focus on the race. How far are we willing to go to try and push our way through the order? Or are we going to settle down a little bit? Are we going to take things with a bit of caution? Are we going to be a little bit more nervous out there and focus on our longer drives? Well, Bego Krobler is looking for the inside line. That tells the story, as he is not concerned for the tyre life right now. He's on a solid brute force attack, trying to make it work on the inside of Henry Platt. Side by side they go. Henry's going to fight him onto the left-hander they go, and Bego just loses out the momentum to fight it out with the Mustang. Goes and understeers, and Ernest Lindberg starting to gain that time back onto them. So Lindberg's, who might be in a bit of no man's land at the moment, has got the opportunity to keep his fight on the way through. I mean, this is always a tough race for those competitors to really stand on the gas, to really force themselves up through the order. But Henry Platt, Bego Krobler will continue the charge as they fight for 6th and 7th in position. So, with that being said, we now go on to 54 minutes left of this race, and let's see who's gained the most and who's lost the most of our current runners out on the track. And that is going to be the most gains, ironically enough, is actually Lucan Haynes, who was part of an earlier contact, lost out a lot of drive, and is now up 16 positions from where he started. He started in 34th, landed up with a contact, threw down the order, then got the drive back up through into 18th at the moment. But that being said, Reginald Mutilani holds 3rd place of those. He's in 14, up on from where he started. Vessel Woda's actually up on 15, so he's 2nd of those that have gained during the course of this race, also starting out of that top 20. But those that have lost the most has to go to the likes of Neil Swartz. He's gone and lost out quite a few positions out there, and Ruben Heineke has lost out the most of the drivers. Out of everyone there, Ruben Heineke has lost out 28 positions after starting 8th in the race. The contacts, unfortunately, threw him down the field. He's done his first stop, but will be starting to consider what does he need to do to bring himself back into the fray as he tries to close up the gap and get past one of the Griffin Sim Racing drivers, trying to unlap himself at this moment and stay within the fight. Good to see him still out there pushing as hard as he can and trying to keep the momentum up. But we go back up to Henry Platt, Bego Krobler, and Ernest Lindbergs, who have now closed up on one another, trying to keep the pressure as Lindberg sees Bego right in the middle of him, with Henry Platt right there ahead, close, trying to reach out and grab him. Unfortunately, not getting that drive in his favor, will go out a little bit wide. Henry Platt losing out the time. Bego Krobler looks for the inside, looked for the outside, both not working in his favor here. He knows that Lindbergh is sitting in that review mirror, and Platt needs to be careful on where he's going to get a little bit defensive, because he's vulnerable not only to Bego Krobler, But just off the rear wing, you can see that Honda NSX trying to close up the gap and be in the fray. So down the main straight they go. This is where you're going to be flat, full taps, over 300 kilometers an hour. The drivers are going to experience. You can see Henry starts to open up the gap a little bit more each and every way as he utilizes that V8. Quick flash of lights from Begor Hrobler as he's just letting him know, hey, listen, I'm gaining a bit of time on you. And take a look at Limburgs. He actually switches out to his normal racing line to try and close up the gap to Begor Hrobler. So always an interesting play to the drivers. Bego goes out, loses a little bit of time, hunts for the apex. Can he go for it side by side as they head into the corner? Contact between Platt and the likes of Begor Hrobler, both not going in yielding at this point. Platt slows down Begor Hrobler on the apex, and that has allowed Ernest Limburgs to get into the fray. Bego hunts the inside line yet again. Unfortunately, get pushed to the outside, and there's Limburgs. Goes for the pass. Side-to-side contact with Bego as he was sliding out, but the understeer starting to creep in on that Ferrari, and both are going to continue on the charge. It is the Latva numero uno going and fighting out against Begor Hrobler, and it is going to be a huge run for Limburgs if he wants to go late on the brakes. Unfortunately, Bego just a little bit later in that Ferrari, a little bit more comfortable, but great racing between the two. A bit of elbow-to-elbow contact between all three cars has now brought Gerrit Bucas and the likes of Gerry van Zyl into the mix. Luca Danes dives into pit lane to get his pit stop done and dusted. We will be keeping an eye on Jason Farmer, who will lead out those that have done their pit stops and is trying to close up the gap as well. Begor Hrobler, Ernest Limburgs onto the back of Henry Platt yet again. Platt down the main straight will have the run, and take a look at Limburgs this time around, a bit closer as he gains the time, as he charges his way through. I mean, this is always a tough race, and will be going and seeing how it's going to work out here. Ernest Limburgs looks around the outside, unfortunately not able to make it work this time round, but does show a bit of a threat. Begor Hrobler now got the pressure on him, will be trying to look for the inside of Henry Platt, not able to get the run, and trying to fight out as they fight their way through. I mean, this is always a tough time out here, and they're looking to fight their way through to the order. I mean, this is absolutely phenomenal. As each of the drivers hoping to put the power down. Ernest Limburgs, Begor Hrobler, Gerrit Bucas, all fighting with one another. Begor Hrobler losing a little bit of momentum. Now onto the back of Henry Platt, as you know, we've gone from a duo to a trio to a quad, as they fight their way through for 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th position. But don't count out the likes of Gerry van Zyl, who's only a second off Gerrit Bucas, and is gaining a bit of time there to also stay in for the fight. I mean, this is going absolutely mental at the moment, and each of the drivers just trying to think, how can they one-up one another as they push on closer to that halfway mark of the race. We're down to 28 degrees, and we have seen our couple of first pit stops happening. However, I don't think any of these 5 drivers that we currently got on screen are going to be worried about any pit stops. They are going to be fighting that little bit further. They're going to be seeing that they can race that little bit harder, and they're going to be ensuring they're in for the long haul here. It's the long fight to make it work. Begor Hrobler closes up on Henry Platt down the main straight, but unfortunately that V8 just having a little bit more legs. Begor's going to keep to the inside, switches to the outside line. He's got to be committed through the corner to make it work. Henry Platt, however, does hold his position, forces Begor out very wide. Begor loses out that drive. Ernest Limburgs looked for the inside, wasn't close enough to make it work, does look for the up and under. That unfortunately doesn't come into play. Gerrit Bucas now onto the back of him as they continue on the charge. Begor Hrobler starting to utilize those off tracks. They've got 3 of them. You will be warned. Once, twice, 3 times. And if you don't listen on the 3rd, well, it's a drive-through penalty that will be implemented at the race during the course with our directors going and having a bit of fun. The sim will hand them out to you like it is candy on Halloween. They will be going all out to fight it out, but they've got to be so cautious of the drivers pushing the limits. Henry Mayer, Christoph Peterson, Fleming Bauer, they've gone ahead. Daniel De Villiers, Jason Abschmeyer, they've left this fight and can be rather thankful for leaving this 5-car trade, as we do see the likes of Gerry van Zyl of the Panda City team start to close up the gap. Ernest Lindbergh's fighting out with Bego Krobler. Bego looking for the inside, switches out to the outside, looks for the up and under. Unfortunately, not able to make it work. Ernest Lindbergh's keeps the pressure on for that inside line, forcing Bego to go back to the apex to defend as hard as possible. Bucas loses out the drive from the trio and now has got Gerry van Zyl in tow. Lindbergh's has got the drive. The Honda, for the very first time, 0.1 of a second onto the back of Bego Krobler. He's going to try and make it work. Might look for a bit of a bump draft here to see if he can force Bego Krobler into a little bit of late braking. He's going to try around the outside yet again. No movement from the drivers to go any defensive or attack. They will continue on the racing line, and we do see everyone trying to focus on the attack. They try to push themselves that little bit more. Gerry Bucas goes out wide. Gerry van Zyl tried to look for the inside line. Unfortunately, not able to make it work. And we're back into a 5-car train as Lindbergh's goes back on the attack of Bego Krobler. Henry Platt has driven a good race thus far and will be going through. Christoph Peterson pits from our top 3, trying to get that earlier stop. We hit the 45-minute mark. This is where you want to see it turn into a race for him, as he needs to keep ahead of Jason Farmer. But will the undercut work in favor to try and get ahead of Henry Mayer and Fleming Bauer? As we do see Ernest Lindbergh dives into pit lane, so does Gerry Bucas, pulls into pit lane, so it leaves the running duo of Henry Platt and Bego Krobler to deal with one another to try and see if they lose a little bit of time. Gerry Bucas pulls in the pits. He releases likes of Gerry van Zyl in for the drive as well. So we're starting to see some good bit of momentum here, some clever thinking from our drivers, trying to guess what is going to be the opportune moment. Chris Collison tries to go around the inside of Gerald Pretorius, wasn't able to get that pass done and dusted as they continue on. Go Benny Boy, go racing for the Snails Racing. Good to see them out there supporting the drivers and also going and supporting the Snails, the Racing Snails and the Stingers, going and running sort of the same livery at one point, but will be cheering each other on. And I know they're cheering in both the gold and silver and the Pro-Am that we see currently fighting out. Gerald Pretorius holding for the Griffin Sim Racing team, dealing with Chris Collison at the moment, and Nicholas Manuel trying to close up that gap in 25th position as he tries a little bit harder to move forward. Big talking point, however, comes in. Christoph Peterson hits it from 3rd, did a splash and dash, 7.6 seconds in the box, and came out in 14th. So he is going to take a new set of tires, possibly towards the end of the race, try and push it a little bit more. And, oh, it's actually Jackie that's going and saying how's it, which is always great to see. Bit weird that we don't see you out on track, Jackie. Should actually see you out on track a little bit more often. Gerald Pretorius holding ahead of Chris Collison. Look to the inside line. Is he going to make it work? Down the back straight. There you go. And onto the brakes. Drive-through penalty for Wessel Voda. 4 track limits exceeded. So that is already a first of our track limits exceeded and came out to Wessel Voda, who was on an absolute flyer, but now going to be dropping down the order. Benjamin Till, Bego Krobler, Gerry van Zyl all dive into the pits to get themselves sorted out. Chris Biermeister also gets into pit lane to try and get himself a little bit further. We do see Herman Wepner dive into the pits, and Ernest Lindbergh's will be continuing on the charge. Remember, he's also one that has dived into the pits. 6 seconds in the box, however, and that is only for a splash and dash, and will continue to go and fight out. So Ernest Lindbergh's fights it out with Jason Farmer. Both have done their first pit stop. but it does show you where you need to be in the field to be able to move yourself up within fighting reaches. Beggar Frobler and Kerry Van Zyl will learn to go down the field as well as Jonathan Chrysler, Jason Farmer, Ernest Lindbergs continue on the drive. But it is a very precarious time coming into turn 1 on a new set of tyres to try and make it work. And that is to be said. Beggar Frobler, Kerry Bucas, and the likes of Kerry Van Zyl, Benjamin Till, all taking a new set of tyres on their car to try and push himself a little bit further up in the order and leaving a splash and dash for their final pit stop. Jason Farmer gets a run on Jonathan Chrysler. Ernest Lindbergs keeps Jason Farmer in tow. Both of them know each other very, very well. Jonathan, unfortunately, not having the pace in that Lamborghini, loses out to the slipstream effect, and that slingshot brings Ernest Lindbergs a little bit up in the order to 15th, but Jonathan Chrysler not out of the fighting chance yet. Will keep the pressure on. Jason Absmeyer, Henry Mayer, Fleming Bauer, all diving into the pits. We've got a variety in pit lane as quite a few drivers, Jonas Buertzes, Daniel De Villiers, all trying to look to get one over one another. However, Henry Platt now leads out the race. He has not pitted during the course of this race and is keeping it foot flat all the way through to wear that tank out and see where he comes out towards the end of the race. He wants to try and maintain some sort of positioning in the top 10. We see him take the fight, but the question is, where does he come out to Beggar Frobler on that late strategy? Ernest Lindbergs up onto the back of Jason Farmer. They continue on. Christoph Peterson leads out the pack that have done their first pit stop. The undercut has worked, but let's see how it's going to work out for the rest of the field. Fleming Bauer did a full stop. He's got a new set of tyres on the car and fully fueled the car. So is Jason Absmeyer. De Villiers doing exactly the same as well as they try to make their pace. Henry Mayer, new set of tyres and fuel on his way through. So interesting for the drivers, taking those gambles and seeing how it's all going to play out in their favour. But for those that have taken the early pit stop, done a short fuel, will change tyres towards the end. A single stint is a little bit rough in these conditions. 28 degrees out there, but this track is hard on the left front. A lot of pressure gets put in, especially through this right-hander here, as you really lean on the left-hand side to try and hold a little bit of grip. The rears also take a bit of a beating, as Jason Farmer shows with that understeer starts to creep in. It does land to throw you out a little bit further and will start to get those warnings. Christoph Peterson gets a pass on Rem van der Race, who's trying to close up the gap to the likes of Johan Fiers, who leads out the Pro-Am. Rem van der Race in second place with Reginald Muttolini in third, but interesting going on. Henry Platt, Johan Fiers, Rem van der Race all dives into the pits, and Jean-Ray Detoy leads out the field for the first time. Jean-Ray Detoy of the Stiggers Racing looks to try and fight his way through. Second place is Reginald Muttolini. He has not done his pit stop, but is successfully in second place of the race. Henry Mayer taking third place back from the likes of Christoph Peterson. Jason Farmer in fourth. Fleming Bauer in fifth. Jonathan Chrysler still needing to do his stop to get himself sorted out. So we're starting to see these changes coming into play, but we will have drivers finishing all their pit stops and will be out on the circuit racing for the final 38 minutes of this race. This is gonna be a proper charge for our drivers to see how they're going to work out. Beggar Frobler gets ahead of Herb Bukes, Riem for the race, trying to keep on the pressure, but it is going to be the likes of Christoph Peterson who is in for his final stop. He's done and dusted. Was it a new set of tyres? Yes, it was. 33.1, and is now racing till the end. Has he saved enough of the tyres to push himself a little bit more? He's in 19th position and has got a long way to climb up the road to try and close through. Ernest Lindbergs, his teammate, however, lands up with a stop-go 30-second penalty for speeding in pit lane, and unfortunately that will be hammering him in the race. He'll have to stop, get that 30 seconds out the way, and continue on the drive. So we will see that. But unfortunately, it does look like he's actually stopped the car and retired. Ernest Lindbergs has retired the car after having that stop-go 30-second penalty. That is unfortunate to see. Not quite how we want to see drivers falling out of the race. Reginald Mutilini gets into the pits, but I'd prefer to see drivers see it through to the end. If you see in the green, you got to see the checker. That is my motto, and that's what I love to say here at RaceFace.Pro, and pretty much anywhere actually. Fleming Bauer holds second behind his teammate Jonathan Crissett up into third place. Reginald Mutilini in the pits will lose out to Daniel the Hitman de Villiers in that Nissan GTR in the Pennzoil colors. A bit of a tribute to the Pennzoil Nissan Skyline of old that dominated in the championships. I mean, these are just some incredible driving at the moment, but it is still open cards for a lot of these drivers. Jason Abishmeyer, a little bit down the order. He's trying to close up to de Villiers. Did a full stop, but is 2.8 seconds off the back of de Villiers. However, the question comes in, when are the drivers going to do their final stops? Jonathan Crissett still needing to do 2 stops and leads out the Pro-Ams as it stands. Reginald Mutilini is behind him in second place, followed by Rian van der Race of the Pro-Am field. Now, Jonathan Crissett trying to stretch open that gap a little bit further may work out in his favor, but it is going to be properly close for the fight. I don't, however, think it's going to be an easy one, as Rian van der Race goes and fights it out with Kerry Fudzale. Looks up around the outside. Fudzale's got the drive on Rian van der Race. They're fighting for overall position, but not for class, and Rian van der Race tucks into the toe and allows Kerry Fudzale to pull him along down the straight. Van der Race now starting to think about where he is in class and where is he going to be fighting out overall. Started to try to line himself up for a good race here, and with classes coming into play, it always makes things interesting. Milestone comes out of pit lane, drive through penalty for Lucan Haynes. Unfortunately, 4 track limits exceeded. Milestone, part of an earlier incident, has been starting to get that climb back up through the order, despite having a lot of damage to the Aston Martin. He's limped it through thus far and will be trying to see the end of it. Good to see him out there putting the pressure on the drivers. Herman Webner trying to fight out with Sean Loureiro. Looked for the inside line. Couldn't quite get the up and under to work out in his favor, but both, however, go out very wide. And, well, Herman, very, very wide, long since gone. Jonathan Crissett into the pits, now getting his pit stop out of the way. So, still big moves here. Reginald Mutilini done his final pit stop, will be heading out onto the circuit, but it's Rian van der Race who leads out our Pro-Am field at the moment. So, for our pros, we got Henry Mayer, Fleming Bauer, and Daniel de Villiers locking out our top 3 for the pro field. For our Pro-Am, as it stands, Rian van der Race holds the top spot, but for how long is the question that is going to come into play, as we do see, getting out a little bit wide there, and sees Daniel de Villiers having to take a little bit of a wider line to avoid a sideways BMW. Tianas Buerta getting the run on Rian van der Race. They're helping each other down the straight, and you can see how Buerta, with a McLaren, with a slipstream, is able to get past van der Race with ease at the moment. But let's talk about the fast lap time of the race. A 1:53.5 set by Henry Mayer continues to try and open up that gap a little bit further to Christoph Peterson, who, might I add, is in 13th position with Jason Farmer in 16th, and they have completed their pit stop. Chris Coddleson down in 22nd with Nicholas Manuel have completed their pit stops, and Gerard Pretorius a little bit further down from there. So we are starting to see some of the drivers considering their options. Unfortunately, Vessel Loader, who's served a drive-through penalty, now also needs to do his final stop. That's going to slip him further down the order. Nicholas Manuel trying to get the pass on Chris Collison will try for the inside line. as the Mustang steps out wide. Chris fights the back of the pass, however, and it's going to be Nicholas Manuel up and under. Gets that Ferrari past and now needs to be right on the throttle, right on the brakes. Slows down Chris Collison, takes him off cam, and now tries to open up that gap a little bit further. Christoph Peterson trying to get past Ruan van der Walt. Interesting time, however, as the Pandassi driver has an option to fight it out with Christoph Peterson. They are fighting for class and overall position, but once you see who's actually done the pit stops, Christoph Peterson is in for a little bit of hurt here, and Ruan van der Walt is not only going to be helping himself to try and keep guys behind him, but also his teammates up the road who still need to do that final pit stop. As we do see Christoph around the outside of Ruan van der Walt, will try go for the outside pass. It's going to be tough, however. The Honda NSX hasn't quite got the run with the 4-cylinder twin turbos that has got on board. Quick flash of the lights, and that was actually a thank you to Ruan van der Walt for minding out of the way. Quick flash there of a thank you coming in. Gotta say, actually good to see the drivers going and having that little bit of consideration. Usually we see the hazard lights come on as a thank you, but a quick flash of lights also does show as well, especially re-watching back on the stream. Jean-Ray Dutoit holds 10th as he's got Ruan van der Race keeping the pressure on him. Van der Race leads out the Pro-Am with Johan Verveers and the likes of Benjamin Till running in 3rd in class position. Henry Mayer, Fleming Bauer, Daniel De Villiers lock out that top 3 in 12 seconds. Henry Mayer's got over his own teammate to try and ensure they have that little bit of room. 30 minutes and 23 seconds to go, however, in this race, and drivers will be starting to consider their options as refueling is not putting new tires is not an option. You're going to have to deal with what you've got to fight through the order. That is always going to be a tough time for the drivers to think that little bit more in hindsight. What is the future going to hold for them? How far are they willing to go? How much are they willing to push one another to ensure they stay in for the fight? That is going to be the question for these drivers as they start to consider and weigh up their option. For those that have done their pit stops and have changed tires on their last pit stop, they're going to have fresher bits of rubber compared to those that have not done their pit stops, because that little bit of added room for strategy is slowly starting to dwindle, slowly starting to disappear, and they will have to commit to just pushing that little bit harder and hope that the track surface doesn't get too abrasive on the tires. Down to 27 degrees on track temperature, and they continue to focus on their lap time. Sean Herrera and Herman Whipner are closing on one another. They're actually one of our closest battles currently on circuit, fighting for 18th and 19th in position. 1 second separating the Griffin Sim Racing driver to the likes of the Pandassi NOC Innovation as they continue to focus on the drivers to move forward and keep the pressure on. Nicholas Manuel, Chris Collison trying to close up to Jonathan Chrysler. Christoph Peterson 1.3 seconds off the back of Ruan van der Race, who leads out the Pro-Am field as they continue to put yet another lap on Paul Ricard. 26 laps in on this race and still plenty of time to go for our drivers. 1 minute 53.5 was the quickest lap time set by Henry Mayer, who currently leads out the pack. Christoph Peterson now trying to close up the gap to Ruan van der Race. Does look for the inside, looks for the outside, late on the brakes, not able to get the pass done as yet. Tries to see once again for the inside line, goes up on the inside. Can he get the pass done and dusted? Van der Race actually is not backing out of the fight here, and they are fighting for overall track position, not really for class position, but Ruan van der Race is going to have the advantage to try and get the run down the main straight. He doesn't want to lift, however. Peterson stuck to that inside line, will have to try and think, how can he get that little bit of momentum? He does pressure from the race, trying to say, hey, listen, buddy, I need you to just lift a little bit here. Give me a bit of room. as Peterson goes up on the inside and narrowly just brings it back before that track cut can be brought in. For the race, tucks in behind and will keep the pressure on. Jonathan Crissett fighting out with Nicholas Manuels. Nicholas Manuel now got the pass on Jonathan, but down the back straight they go, trying to focus on the charge. Jonathan closes up that gap little by little, is staying in for the fight. He's gonna look around the outside, see if there's an opportunity to get the pass done and dusted, and will be keeping the pressure on one another. Jonathan Crissett seeing that they have got Chris Collison now starting to close up the gap as well in that Mustang. All three cars taking a very tight line, not wanting to push themselves that little bit too far out. And it makes me wonder how many drivers have got their final warning here at Paul Ricard that they've got to keep an eye on, that they've got to ensure they keep the pressure on the drivers ahead, but at the same time, like what we've seen with Sean Larrea and Herman Whitner, go and lift off that little bit earlier. Try and give themselves just enough room to protect from the fight. So it's always a tough time out there. Everyone having to consider the options. What do they need to do to move forward? Jonathan Crissett pulls into the pits to do his final pit stop. Vessel Woda is going to be the next one to think about his pit stop. He unfortunately is down the order from where he wanted to be. Does open for our leaders to come on by, but doesn't choose to go into pit lane. He's going to continue to try and chase down for the top running order. And that is also playing into the roles of our leaders. Our top 10 yet to do their final pit stop, with Christoph Peterson 2.9 seconds off. Jean-Ray Detoy has done his final pit stop, and that goes in for our Pro-Ams, as currently our top 6 of the Pro-Ams have not done their pit stop, their final pit stops. They are trying to just push that a little bit more. Run for the Vault keeps the pressure on Round for the Race. We've seen these two trade positions earlier on in the race, trying to pull each other along. Is it going to happen again? That is going to be the question between them. As we see Herman Whitner right onto the back of Sean Larrea. Is he going to go for the pass on the inside? Not going to do it down the back straight. Will maintain course for 18th and 19th respectively. But Larrea out wide, and that has got Herman up on the inside. He gets it done. The understeer taking likes of Larrea out of the running here, as he tucks back into the toe and will now try and keep himself running. So it is still a close fight between them, but however, tires starting to fall off on both of the drivers, as we're starting to see on a number of drivers as they push on for 28 laps around Paul Ricard. The front left is going to be hurting. The rears are going to be crying out in pain as they dig deep for those proper quick lap times. The entirety of the field dropping down into the 54s and 55s. They're not able to pick up the pace like we saw with the 153s earlier on in the race. Everyone going and toning the pace down and rather focusing on the longer drive. Run for the Vault up on the inside of Fun to Race. Is this pass going to happen? However, once again, class position. And there is the trade. Fun to Vault now ahead of Run for the Race, who now will try and keep in the tow. Christoph Peterson is lying 2.3 seconds off the back of Jean-Ray Detoy. The Stingers Racing Lamborghini is within reach of him, but at the same time, it does tell the story, because Jean-Ray Detoy is 2.6 seconds off the back of Tiernas Buerta, who is 4 seconds off the back of Harry Fazale, and it racks up more and more and more as Henry Mayer is 13 seconds ahead of his own teammate Fleming Bauer in second place. Daniel de Villiers 12 seconds back from them, is looking to try and take that top stop on the podium. Jason Abschmeyer 3 seconds off the back of Daniel de Villiers. Bago Krobler trying to fight. He's 11 seconds off the back of Jason Abschmeyer, but it's got Herb Bucas for a bit of company, 1.8 seconds back. And then we will see these start to evolve as we get closer. Now heading towards the 20-minute mark. This is rather late in the race for a lot of these drivers to consider their final pit stops. We have seen some pit literally with 30 seconds to go left in the race to try and get that overcut on the rest of the field. However, it does land up hurting them in the long run as they land up going through a pit lane that can cost them 30 seconds just to drive through it. And it's major braking to get to the pit lane off a straight. Christoph Peterson focusing on a bit of a cooler line, goes off a racing line, back onto the racing line, trying to protect the tyres a little bit more here as he closes up to Jean-Ray Du Toit. Not an easy time between them as they keep the pressure on one another, but Christoph Peterson constantly thinking about what does he need to do to try and move his way up through the order. How far is he going to push his way back into the top 10? Well, he's within a second of Jean-Ray Du Toit, and this is crucial to get the pass done as quick as possible. Try and get it done. Jason Abschmeyer into the pit. This is a big one for Jason Abschmeyer. It's going to be a short fuel stop for him, but can be a crucial exit to try and come out. Is he going to be racing, however, with the likes of Christoph Peterson? Well, unfortunately not, as we do see him in pit lane and will be waiting out. We do, however, see Lucan Haynes, but in the middle of nowhere, and that is a very broken number 3. The Racing Snails not having an easy time out there, and what on earth happened to Lucan? So we jump on board with the BMW, heading into turn 1, into 5th gear, over the curbs, and just completely disconnect, and huge into the wall. That is a flat out into the wall, and unfortunately mechanical failure taking him out of the race. A proper big shunt, and it looked like the throttle was just jammed wide open heading into turn 1, and that is unfortunately Jackie's teammate out of the race due to mechanical failure. Jean-Ray Du Toit keeps the pressure on Christoph Peterson. He's gonna try to look around the outside. Christoph, however, will hold the inside line. He goes back to middle to guard his line and sees that Jean-Ray Du Toit now keeps the pressure on him, trying to figure out what's going to be the working game here for them. Tienes Buerta is going to be next up the road to deal with Christoph Peterson. 2.6 seconds between them. Round for the race, trading positions with likes of Johan Verveers, both still needing to do their final pit stop, but Johan Verveers leads out the Pro-Am. Round for the race is second, with Benjamin Till third of the Pro-Ams. If Verveers pulls into the pits, I do think Round for the Race will do exactly the same to try and stop the undercut, but it is going to be a race for both of them down to the wire for our Pro-Am field. So, for the race, looking around the outside, tries to think about the inside line on Johan Verveers, however, not working out his options here, does have to back out, and we do see Run for the Vault dive into pit lane. Both our Pro-Ams not going into pits. He will continue on the charge. Benjamin Till as well. So our top 3 of the Pro-Am can see each other within sight, but they are all now starting to think, when are they going to pull the trigger first? Who is going to be the one to pull the trigger first? I mean, this is always a guessing game, and it's going to be one of those old Star Wars talk about of who shot first, who pulled the trigger first, and it's going to be like a bit of a Han Solo guessing game between them. Verveers holds out for round 3 of the EG Evolved GT3 Championship here at RaceFace.Pro, but how long are they going to be able to make it work? Bego Krobler dealing with the likes of Herb Bukes as he runs in 4th place, with Bucas now in 5th. Daniel De Villiers holds out in 3rd, 13 seconds off the back of Fleming Bauer, and Henry Mayer still holds up that top spot, but it's going to come in for that pit stop as Christoph Peterson now tails on to the back of Tienes Buerta, 1.8 seconds up the road. 17.5 minutes left of this race, and Christoph Peterson is committed to really putting his foot down. But Henry Mayer, Fleming Bauer, Daniel De Villiers, Bego Krobler, Gerrit Bukers, Henry Platt, Harry Van Zyl, Tiernis Buerta, our top 8 have to push as far into this race as possible to try and get that final stop out of the way without losing too much time. Jean-Ray Dutoit sits in that 10th place spot. He still needs to pit. But our top 3 of our Pro-Am also continue on the charge. Nicholas Manuel and Herman Whitner, they fight it out between one another. Herman still needing to do his pit stop, same as Sean Herrera a little bit further back, as likes of Nicholas Manuel now tries to get his way past. So, Nicholas is committed. He's done. He's racing to the end of the race. Bego Krobler unfortunately gets it wrong, loses out to Gerrit Bukers and Henry Platt. A very odd mistake coming onto the main straight and has cost himself a bit of time there. So let's quickly take a look at the Team Wolf driver. That number 15, Ferrari 296. As Bego Krobler was going all okay. Did the tyres cave? Yes, they did. And unfortunately, the rear spun out. There goes Bukers, and Platt joins on by. And it does bring Gerrit Van Zyl a little bit closer to Bego Krobler into the fight as well. Bego long since gone. Those rears and fronts not grabbing anymore and costing him a bit of time. That understeer getting worse and worse. Peterson trying to get onto the back of Tiernis Buerta. They will be aiming down the main straight, and it's going to be a hard charge. Sorry, this is off the back. So Tiernis Buerta runs out a little bit wide, and Christoph Peterson takes the inside line, gets the pass done and dusted as they continue on. So this is on the latter part of the circuit towards the final sector, and Tiernis Buerta not able to hold Christoph Peterson at bay that long, but did do enough to possibly eke out a little bit more for his teammates. Jason Amschmeyer gains a position over Chris Biermeister as the two of them trade blows. Chris lying 4th in the Pro-Am, still needing to do his final stop, much like the top 3 ahead of him in the Pro-Am field that continue on the charge, with Johan Verveers, Ryan van der Race and Benjamin Till continuing to put yet another lap. Oh, speaking of such, Benjamin Till flips the script. He dives into the pits and is the first of the top 3 to dive into the pits. Will Chris Biermeister answer, and will Whitner answer along with Sean Herrera? They also fighting for that 3rd place. Are they going to go that a little bit longer in the game? But it is a call for Van der Race and the likes of Verveers of how long are they going to go? How long are they willing to fight it out? Christoph Peterson now 4.2 seconds off Gerrit Van Zyl, who's on to the back of Bego Krobler, gaining a little bit of time, little by little. The top 7 will be running short on options here on that final pit stop. 33 laps in here at Paul Ricard for round 3 of the EG Evolved GT3 Championship here at RaceFace.Pro, as we do see Bego Krobler once again miles out in the distance, having to slow the car down. Gerrit Van Zyl gaining that little bit of time. Tiernis Buerta getting a little bit of pace on Jean-Ray Dutoit as well, but Gerrit Van Zyl in 7th. Now seeing Bego Krobler starting to have a lot of pain on those tires, not gripping up. Track temperature down to 26. This is, they qualified on 30. It got the race starting on 28. We're down to 26. That is a big drop in temperature for the tires. It's a big drop in temperature for the drivers to contend with, and will be a consideration for each of the ones going through. Jean-Ray Dutoit trying to get the pass on Tiernis Buerta. He opts to dive into the pits, allowing Buerta to go and fight their way through. So always a tough time out there. Guessing games coming in. Who's pulling the trigger? Our top 7 yet to pull into the pits, and our top 3 of our Pro-Ams are yet to do their final pit stop. Sean Herrera as well. Gerard Pretorius is actually running 4th, with Reginald Mutaleni trying to close up the gap to him as well. And they have done all their pit stops. So they're in for the long haul here and trying to see when exactly can they get the run. Sean Herrera onto the back of Chris Collison. Unfortunately, a loss of position there. However, it is a pro driver getting ahead of Pro-Am, so it's not a class position lost in this race. You've got to consider the facts coming in of who you're versing and who you're not. As Jean-Ray Dutoit lets on Jason Abschmeyer go, looks to utilize the toe, and actually tries to fight back around the outside. Jason Abschmeyer having to go defensive to try and protect his line. So Jean-Ray Dutoit had the pass happen to him, second-guessed the option, and then put the pressure on the likes of Jason Abschmeyer. He wanted to fight for that overall position, however, was offline and wasn't able to carry that momentum a little bit further in the race. So, back into the toe, we'll now have another shot at Jason Abschmeyer, who holds out that 13th position. Jason Farmer is in 12th, second of those that have done their final pit stops. And we still keep an eye out at our top 7, yet to get in the box for our pros, but our top 2 for our Pro-Ams needing to get in the box as well. Jean-Ray keeps the pressure on Jason Abschmeyer into the final into the back straight. Unfortunately, couldn't get the pass done at the end. Gerald Pretorius, however, gets a pass on Sean Loureiro, and that means Gerald Pretorius is now up into a net third place once Chris Biermeister comes into the pits. Sean Loureiro still needing to get his stop done. Reginald Mutileni 3.6 seconds back from them. He's going to have to really dig deep to try and get the pace, to try close up the distance and still be in for the fight. 33 cars remain, 38 cars started in this race. A variety of technical issues coming in for a couple of these drivers due to massive damage, due to pedal failure, where we saw the lock on Lucanades that speared him into the wall, into turn 1, and we still continue to see quite a few drivers trying to push out that a little bit more. Henry Mayer gets past pit lane. Fleming Bowers, the next question. Is he going to do the same? And is Daniel de Villiers gonna go that little bit further in the race? 10 minutes left to go. Bauer goes past pit lane. De Villiers will now see that, and will he continue on the drive? Will he try and push that a little bit harder? Kerry Van Sale puts pressure on Bego Grubler as they fight it out for 6th and 7th. They still need to do their final stops, much like Turnus Buerta down in 9th position. Will need to try and get his stop and not lose too much time to Jason Farmer, Jason Abschmeyer, and Jean-Ray Dutoit. But our Pro-Am is still open cards for our top 3 needing to do their final stop. So, Kerry Van Sale dives into pit lane, releases Bego Grubler to try and push that a little bit more. 6 of our tops now needing to get into the pits, and Christoph Peterson making an easy pass. This is what he wants, to have open roads to keep the power on. He's down into the 154.7, and that is off the pace from where he wants to be. Henry Mayer did a last lap of 154.9, Fleming Bauer 154.9, De Villiers a 155, Kerry Bucas with a 155, Henry Platt with a 155, Bego Grubler with 155. Peterson wants to try and get into that 155, the 154.5s to try and have a good gain on the rest of the field. Kerry Van Sale comes out ahead of the likes of Jason Abschmeyer, Jean-Ray Dutoit, and Rem for the Racing Chris Biermeister dive into the pit lane. So an interesting choice there for the likes of Fafiers, who is left out in the cold for the Pro-Am, having to try and pick up the pieces of where he's going to go. Gerald Pretorius now third in the Pro-Ams. Is he going to be able to close up and get past our second place Aurelian van der Race? And it does look like he has, along with Reginald Mutileni. Jared McComb with a drive-through penalty due to track limits exceeded, and Rian van der Race down into 20th has lost out that top 3 of Pro-Am. That late gamble cost him time. Henry Mayer into the pits. Fleming Bauer continues on the charge. So Henry Mayer trying to see if he can cut off the nose of Christoph Peterson, who fights his way through the final sector. Henry Mayer does exit the pits. He has got enough room and will hold third place right behind Daniel de Villiers, but is in net first away from Christoph Peterson, who is just a little too far back to try and utilize the run. Fleming Bauer now needs to get into the pits, and the likes of Daniel de Villiers needs to get into the pits. 7 minutes and 23 seconds remain, and our PWSR drivers now trying to figure out what can they do, how can they focus on the charge, and Daniel de Villiers hopes to put in that major impact for the PWSR team. Kurt Bucas, along with Henry Platt, Beggar Krobler, need to get into the pits. Christoph Peterson will usurp them into 4th place. Unfortunately, will not be close enough to the likes of Henry Mayer to even be within striking distance towards the end of this race. Unfortunately, the whole race turned on its head. Tienes Buerta loses out to Jean-Ray de Toy. He does, however, come out ahead of Nicholas Manuel. We do see Vesselwoda close up on a rate of knots, but he doesn't have to worry about him. Vesselwoda down in 32nd position will sit waiting for his opportunity. Chris Burmester all over the back of Ulrich Diaga for the Griffin Sim Racing team, who defends his line. The BMW driver now trying to figure out what does he need to do to hold his current position. He's currently sitting 5th in the Pro-Am standings. He doesn't want to lose out to Chris, who will take him down into 6th and lose out a good couple of points there. So, as drivers keep the pressure on, it's all going to come down to who's in the box. Daniel de Villiers is next to dive into the box. Fleming Bauer, however, keeps on full taps and will be going and trying to keep his teammate in good contention here, as Henry Mayer is in 2nd. Kurt Bucas will come across the line. He's going to go a little bit further. So is Henry Platt. They're going to try and push themselves a little bit more into this race. Bego Krobler trying to make that climb. He has got Christoph Peterson closing up the gap behind him, but they still need to do that final stop, and they need to get it done within the next 2 to 3 laps. Otherwise, they in for a world of hurt. Daniel de Villiers comes out ahead of Johan Verveers, who currently leads out the Pro-Ams and is the only Pro-Am driver that hasn't gone into the pit box. He's trying to keep away from the likes of Gerard Pretorius and Reginald Mutilini, who hold 2nd and 3rd in the Pro-Am division currently, as Johan Verveers looking to take his first podium for the season. He's had a nightmare run thus far in terms of the season, but this might be the turning point. It might be the straw that broke the camel's back, and now has an opportunity to move his way through the order. Christoph Peterson wants to make short work of Bego Krobler, Henry Platt, Gerard Bukes, and get a little bit closer to Fleming Bauer to try go for that 2nd place. However, Bego Krobler, we saw, fought out quite hard against Henry Platt in the early stages of the race. His tyres might be going, but he is still looking to try and hold some class position to the likes of Daniel de Villiers, who will be trying to close up that gap. 16 seconds off the back of him. Remember, it is a long pit lane they have to contend with 33 seconds of pit lane that the drivers have to contend with before they can exit and get back onto the power heading into turn 1. So, Fleming Bauer will be making his way through. Is he going to dive into the pits? No. Kurt Bucas, however, dives into the pit lane. So Fleming Bauer going that a little bit further. He's trying to stretch open the gap just a bit more. Kurt Bucas into the pits. Christoph Peterson onto the back of Bego Krobler. 1.8 seconds. Henry Platt's going to go that little bit further as well in the Mustang. The Omnius Gaming driver now tries to stretch open the gap a little bit further. Tienes Buerta and Jean-Ray de Toy, they fight it out for class position. They do have Vesselwoda, who's keeping them company. He is down in terms of laps, but nothing says that he can't keep the pressure in the rearview mirrors of the drivers to ensure he stays there for fun. Kurt Bucas comes out of pit lane. He does lose out to Jason Farmer, who snatches the position away from him. And Kurt Bucas now will have to keep the pressure on to the likes of Jason Farmer. Verveers still needs to do his pit stop. So we got 4 drivers in 2 minutes and 53 seconds that still need to do their stop. Kerry Van Sale loses out the car. And unfortunately in the wall, Jason Amschweiler, Jean-Ray de Toy, Tienes Buerta all come flying past. Nicholas Manuel comes on. So that is a huge loss for Kerry Van Sale. The rears not sticking with him and spun himself around unfortunately costing him a bit of time there. Fleming Bauer now into the pit lane. 2 minutes and 25 seconds. He got the stop done. He'll hand over the first place to Henry Mayer, and Henry will now look to stretch open the gap. Henry Platt, however, will try and keep the pressure to try that a little bit more on Bego Krubler. Is he going to dive into the pits? Will Bego dive into the pits? Or are they going to risk it to get it down to the final lap, as Verveers is looking to do so as well, as we do see Bego Krubler eye for pit lane. Henry Platt into pit lane. Christoph Peterson jumps up ahead of the two. Does he get ahead of Fleming Bauer? However, Fleming comes out of pit lane just ahead of Christoph Peterson, who is now 1.3 on the back of him. This is going to be a brawl of note, as Christoph Peterson needs this second place. He needs to get ahead of Fleming Bauer for hopes in the championship. Johan Verveers dives into the pits, but is it too late? Has he left it too late for Gerald Pretorius, who's trying to close up that time? He does fall down through the order, but will he exit with enough room? Bego Krubler comes out of pits. Henry Platt comes out of pit lane, and it is Johan Verveers who still holds in pit lane. He's waiting for his opportunity to get back on the power. Nicholas Manuel has a bit of a problem. He's out in the middle of nowhere, the 26 driver. Now, a bit glitchy all over the show there. I do apologize. As unfortunately, internet not working out in the favor, much like my English right now. But sounding like a Porky Pig at this point. But Nicholas Manuel has a problem, and there was contact by the looks of it. So having a little bit of a glitch moment cost him a bit of time and put a bit of impact on another driver. And I think that was actually the likes of Rum van der Walt who took the impact there. Gerald Pretorius trying to get past Nicholas Manuel and trying to figure out where can he get this pass done and dusted. So, our leader on the final lap, Henry Mayer, will complete 41 laps of this race and does come up towards the line. Henry Mayer just will take that first place, and I think possibly running out of fuel right before the line. Never mind, he's going to try and make it the side-by-side, as Fleming Bauer will take second place ahead of Christoph Peterson. A beautiful run for Christoph. Unfortunately, just not having enough to the end. Daniel De Villiers, Jason Farmer continue to fight their way through. They'll take 4th, 5th with the likes of Kurt Bucas chasing down in that 6th place position. Johan Verveers holds the lead of the Pro-Am ahead of Gerald Pretorius. Reginald Mutaleni will take 3rd place on his way through. And I've got to say, sorry Reg, I gave you gears for Mind the Gap. Well, you did. And you got that 3rd place in the Pro-Am class as it stands. So Reginald Mutaleni, 0.5, putting the pressure on the likes of Neil Swartz, who are really trying to keep it going. Reg doesn't have to fight too hard, however, as he's got rhythm for the race. 1.8 seconds on the back of him. Not wanting to lose out a bit of time there, but well done to our leaders. Henry Mayer, Fleming Bauer, and Christoph Peterson round out our pros who took the victory. Here comes our Pro-Am field. Nicholas Manuel in that brawl as well, as Johan Verveers will come across the line, taking the victory in the Pro-Am, with Gerald Pretorius taking 2nd place. 3rd going to the likes of Reginald Mutaleni, who is going to be more than happy with that as he comes across the line and will be up on the podium spots, finally getting the break he would like. And the door did not close on him that time. Jeff LaRue will come across the line in 22nd place with Chris Webster, Ulrich Diaga, and Miles Stone, after a great recovery, finishes up in 25th place. Well done to Miles, I've got to say. After having all the problems at the start of the race, he still saw through to the end. And one of our international drivers, Anton Lummers, Sean Lorero, Keegan Rowan, all come across fighting for their position. So great racing had by all, and a phenomenal charge down to the wire. And that is how the book is written. That is how all she wrote for Paul Ricard, and what a race it was. So many strategies coming into play, late calls coming into play, early pit stops. Christoph Peterson narrowly missing out on 2nd place. Johan Verveers played the gamble. Gerald Pretorius takes 2nd in the Pro-Am. Verveers takes 1st, and Reginald Muttolini holds out in third place. I mean, this has been a race of note. Championship points are definitely going to be flipped the script, and we'll take a look at it. And next week, we will show all those championship points live on stream. Once again, massive shout out to our sponsor, EG Evolved, who's going to be at both out at Kyalami and will be out at Comic Con this weekend. And make sure that if you want to go and save big on a rig, definitely reach out to them, as they've got that 10% off, and definitely something you want to grab on T-Slot Aluminium. As we know, it is an incredible piece of kit, and you need a sturdy base to get the best race. Doesn't matter what base you got in terms of your force feedback, but if you're not comfortable in the seat and you're not having a sturdy background for your monitors and everything starts to shake, nothing takes you out of the realism like that, and you can get all of it with the discount, custom powder coating included, red, blue. I'm actually going for the blue, and is all incredible to have. Ends 30th of September and will be out at Comic Con. That being said, we're waiting to have a chat to our drivers who have had a brilliant run and will be taking us through their... So, that being said, we're going to bring in our third place of our Pro-Ams, because got to give it up to the Pro-Ams. A very, very interesting race indeed, and usually overlooked. But let's bring in third place Reginald Muttolini to come and have a chat to us. Reg, welcome to the commentary box. First thing, sorry for giving you gears in driver's briefing. You did mind the gap, and you got third place in the Pro-Am division. How are you feeling after that?
Yeah, actually, it's shocking. It's been a while that I've been into top three. I'm quite ecstatic, actually. The tires were super dead. I was like just hanging on for dear life. Made a big mistake coming out of the pits. Got a double cut. But yo, what an exciting race, I must say. Yeah, the first lap was actually quite interesting. I did mind a lot of gaps.
Well, it was a difficult race. Early start, you were caught in a little bit of a kerfuffle heading into turn 3, turn 4, turn 5. Take us through that start of the race, being in the middle of the grid, and also fairly up in the qualifying position for your class.
Yeah, look, honestly, starting off, like with the quali and everything, I didn't think I had the pace, looking at everybody else's pace. So when it started at the back, I was like, you know what, we'll just accept it. But then, on that first lap, the first corner, I was like, this is looking quite interesting. Saw a bit of a mix-up happening in front. So I placed the car more towards the insides, and then I kept it wide on the other three corners. And essentially, every incident that happened was just happening on the right side, and I just kept on going around the left, and it just worked out well. I was even shocked when I got onto the straight. I'm like, oh my word, did I just survive chaos?
Well, it was a great run indeed, Reg. Before I let you go to enjoy the celebrations, and well earned after a long time to get back onto the podium position. Anything you want to say out to not only your stream out there that you've been broadcasting your point of view to all the viewers there, but also to everyone out in the virtual grandstands here going and cheering on tonight, all the sponsors coming on board and witnessing just history made here at Paul Ricard for round 3 of the EG Evolved GT3 Championship here at RaceFace.Pro.
I must say, look, I look at the streams every time after I've raced, and you know what? The support that we get has been phenomenal. Thanks a lot to everybody else on the virtual grandstands who keeps coming through all the time. And, I know most of them are family members of the racers, and they really enjoy the racing. And when it comes to the sponsors, like, you know what? As much as the racers make it exciting, to go head to head and side by side and everything, but whenever the sponsors are around, it just really adds up a much bigger flair and awesomeness beyond what they think it does for us. Because, the moment the guys put in a lot of time in every race, whether there is a prize or not, they put in a lot of time in every race. But the moment there's big sponsors like EG, and the rest of the other guys. Sorry, I forgot the other guys. Um, it's always awesome, because some people can't afford to upgrade rigs. So having a sponsor, they see it as an opportunity to go, okay, cool. Let me put my best foot forward. When I mean the best foot, as in like the golden foot, not just the best to say, hey, I'm going to try my best, but like the golden one in every race. And they put in a lot of effort and time behind it to try get something out of it. And we really do appreciate what the sponsors do for us in every season.
I can see, Reg, you trying to aim for a new rig, much like myself. I think both of us are got the Ricard going, and looking forward to grabbing onto that special that EG has got out for us here in the season. But Reginald Mutilini taking third place in our Pro-Am. Congratulations. Go and enjoy the celebrations. Well earned.
Oh, thank you very much. And thank you very much, Stephen, and the crew who keeps the stream all wild and awesome as always. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you very much, Reginald Mutilini. Definitely go and keep an eye on his channel. The Noob Nation driver really knows how he's doing, or maybe it's the Era 404. Let's bring in our first place of the Pro-Am, and then we'll move on to our pros. But it's Jan Verveers. Jan, welcome to the commentary box. That gamble, though, are you going to be taking the lotto ticket out? Because a late pit stop nearly cost you first place, and this was your first time on the podium this season after a nightmare start. I mean, it just was working out in your favor tonight, and you rolled the dice, but you didn't get the snake eyes.
Well, I thought I was racing Mr. Van der Rijst, and then I didn't notice Pretorius and Mr. Mutilini was there. But it worked out well. I thought my pace was all right, and I tried to keep up with the pro guys in front of me, so it was nice. It was a very nice race.
Now, we've seen you being quite consistent in previous seasons. How was it feeling tonight? Because it just looked like you had it all hooked up. You haven't had the best of the starts to the season. We can definitely talk about that. But tonight, you were on rails. Tonight, I think was one of your better performances that you've done throughout your career.
Definitely one of my better races. I must say I did a racing on one of the other servers where you're also commentating, and we had Paul Ricard about 2 weeks ago there. So I had a bit of extra practice in the race conditions. But I must say all the guys there at my Trail Bullet team, they were a lot of help for the whole week. Volley and Anton and Frans and Henk and my brother Andre started now as well. So we're 3 Verveers now. But yeah, we had a lot of practice. Well, and I had to teach my brother how the pit stops work and everything. That's normally where I stuff it up. So this time I had to learn him, so I had to practice it myself. So it helped a lot.
Absolutely wonderful to hear. Well, no longer trail bullets. You were the first bullet loaded into the gun. Anything you want to say to all out in the virtual grandstands, tuning in, listening, and being a part of the show, but also the sponsors, the admins, everyone in the background, also to your fellow drivers out on the circuit and teams that you've been fighting with, now that the season seems to have worked out in your favor and looks like you're going to be carrying a lot of momentum heading into round 4.
I hope so, Stephen. Yes. I hope I can keep the momentum up. Yeah. Unfortunately, I couldn't race last week, so that was bad for the points. But yeah, for you guys, EG Evolved, you guys commentating, thanks very much. My team, I already thanked them. So yeah, hopefully I'll see you at the next one and you'll talk again.
Up and forward. Jan Verveer has taken the win of our Pro-Am division. Very, very well done to our drivers. Now, we don't have third place of our pros, unfortunately, as Christoph Peterson needing to leave early, but seriously well done to him. A few words from him saying, well done to all those that finished up into the top 2. Good to see some good racing. Had a little bit more pace on me towards the end of the race. However, it was seriously close towards the end. Nearly had that second place. Going to be going for it again. So good luck to Christoph Peterson this weekend, fighting out for the ERA Championship. and will be finding out against his own teammate, Ernest Limburgs, in the Ferrari 408 happening on Sunday. So a big shout out to them and a good luck to the drivers as well. That being said, let's bring in our second place driver, Fleming Bauer, to come and have a chat to us. Fleming Bauer, welcome to the commentary box. And wow, oh wow, what a race happening out there. Lots of gap between yourself and your teammate, but towards the end, not much left to try and play with out of the final corner with the likes of Christoph Peterson on your tail.
Hi, Stephen. Yeah, no, definitely. We had a great race. At the end, I think this was one of those. It's a warm evening. It's a sweaty day. I think everyone just wanted to get it over with, and doing the extra lap was just a bit too much. So we decided, no, let it go.
Well,
but yeah, it was a good race. I have to say.
Take us through the strategy, because it was a late pit stop on your call, and you did it after the likes of Henry Mayer. Were you concerned about running a little bit of time and falling down the order, because that was a very, very late call? Or was it pre-planned to go that little bit further? Or was it just working it out depending on how close the cars are around you?
Definitely. It was more about just checking the gaps. Henry was in front of me about 17 seconds. So he was getting closer to the cars ahead. I still had open air. And putting yourself behind other cars unnecessarily is just, ruining your own race. So I just took the extra 2 laps in and decided to pit a bit later on the last one.
Definitely a rather exciting run to the end. Well, that being said, carrying a lot of momentum into round 4 and getting to fight out with your teammate in the championship points. Anything you would like to say to all those out in the virtual grandstands, to the Pandacity team, who I know are currently playing out at Comic-Con in a variety of different games and different competitions out there, mainly first-person shooters, but anyone you want to go and shout out to, and also to the sponsors and admin here in the background, and to the drivers and teams that you were fighting out on the track tonight.
Oh no, definitely. Thank you to everyone that comes and races every Thursday. I mean, it's a stacked grid. There's a lot of talent competition through all of it. The Panda team, we feel right at home. We enjoy it so much, and we know they're going to do well with whatever we sign in for. It's just one of those where everyone supports each other, and that's the growth of it. And I think that's the main thing. RaceFace itself, thank you for hosting it. ACC, I mean, there's not a lot of us left, it seems, but we still do it and we still love it. And Stephen, thank you for the commentary. Thank you for the stream. It's always fun to go and watch it back later on and see what happens and hear the involvement and just the breakdowns.
Absolutely wonderful stuff. Fleming Bauer, congratulations on your second place, and looking forward to having a chat in the future. Well done to him. But that being said, there can only be one winner, and that winner set the fastest lap time in the race. Henry Mayer, welcome to the commentary box. What a race on your part. Getting the fastest lap time of the race with a 1:53.5, but also having to navigate your way through the traffic, not to lose time. We heard from your teammate having to alter your calls a little bit of when to get in the box, and feeling the pressure of Christoph Peterson trying to close up that gap to you, who took third place in the Pro Division.
Hello, Stephen. Yeah, this was a fun and difficult race at the same time. The temps made it difficult. But yeah, Peterson did well. Like, pitting so early, I think he made a gutsy call there on the tire side. But it worked out for him, so yeah, good call.
Now, you talked about the temperatures coming into play. We saw that you qualified on 30 degrees. It went down to 26 at the end of the race. Take us through what that actually does to the tire life, because we saw a number of cars starting to lose the rear a little bit more, and also just not having that bite coming out through the right-hand bend.
Yeah, I think it's mostly to do with tire temps at that point. With the track being so high, the tire temps spike up quite a bit, and then you have to play around with certain stuff to see if you can get your temps right but not lose speed. So gentle on the tires, that's all I can say.
Well, an Absolutely great race indeed. Well, before I let you go to enjoy the celebration, stretching that gap in the championship a little bit more, anything you want to say to all the drivers and teams out there racing with you, to all the virtual everyone out there in the virtual grandstands cheering on, being part of the show, being part of the racing, and also to all the admins and sponsors here at RaceFace.Pro. And I'm sure you got a few words you wish to say to the Pandassi team that are fighting in competitions this weekend.
Yeah, just thanks to all the sponsors. Thanks to RaceFace. To you, Stephen, Bertus, Hansi, everyone in the background, everyone watching, thanks. And then, yeah, just thanks to the team. They always make it fun surrounding.
Well, it was absolutely great to have you, and well done yet again for that first place in the Pro division. Henry Mayer taking the win here tonight in the Pro, with Jan Verveers taking the win in the Pro-Am division. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it has been an incredible race. It has been an exciting one, and it is going to be a very, very interesting time as we look forward to round 4 next week. So join us with all the racing next week, Tuesday, a bit of iRacing week 13 fun here at RaceFace.Pro for all the action to have a bit of fun. We did have GT1 versus GT3s at the old Lamar with no chicanes. Now we're going to be jumping into the radicals, the SR8 and the SR10 around Laguna Seca. That's happening on Tuesday. You can join up on SimGrid. The SR8 is a completely free car to have a bit of fun, and the SR10 has zero advantage over the SR8. It's all about loud screamers versus turbochargers to make it work out in order. On Tuesday, we'll be heading in for our Lamar Ultimate, and we're going to be having a bit of fun there, so keep an eye out on a brand new circuit that is from the DLC, and drivers are having to learn brand new lines, brand new markers, and we have got the very close fight in our GT3 field, and with first and second of the Delta Negative in the hypercars. And Thursday, we'll return back to ACC here for the EG Evolved GT3 Championship here at RaceFace.Pro. But honestly, it has been an incredible night. It has been an exciting night. We're in for a busy weekend here in South Africa. Whether you're at the Festival of Motoring on Saturday, Sunday, or if you're at Comic-Con this weekend here in South Africa, go and enjoy. But if you're out there around the world, enjoy the events, have a lot of fun, and I hope the weather works out in your favor. But that being said, we'll see you back here next week to join us here at RaceFace.Pro. Follow us out on our socials. Massive shout out to our sponsors, Team SBR, Rhino Utility, along with Virtual Motorheads and Simulator Cave, and our title sponsor, the likes of EG Evolved, coming in and being part of the show. Make sure you see them out on this weekend. Let them know that from RaceFace, we've sent you to come and say how's it and try out their sims, and drop a word. Say, listen, we heard you getting spoken about by Steven. Probably Andres will never know who that is, so it's always fun to have that confused look on a face for a person. Massive shout out to you all. Thank you once again, and we'll see you next weekend. Hit the subscribe, hit the bell notification icon. Let us know what was your favorite part of the race. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, like always, say it with me. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, everybody.